Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby Babb. We are here today with Tom McKee from TransFICC. Tom, how are you?
Hey, I'm not too bad, Toby. How are you?
Really good, thank you. Listen, great to have you in. TransFICC have been on this show numerous times before. We've spoken lots about what's been going on with the business. Exciting times continue to keep on happening for it, so it's lovely to have you in here, especially off the back of you being the financial technologist and the best workplace for technologists, so congratulations again on that. I had the honour of having that conversation with you, which we passed on to the judges for voting, and it was really exciting. I think you've spoken a different way, an exciting way about what you do to make the company a standout employer of choice for people in the space, and you've got some of the best tech talent in the industry around it. So congratulations on everything. We're going to unpack that a little bit, find out a little bit more about it. We're going to go into what you're doing over at TransFICC at the moment and a little bit more. So lots to pack into today's session. Before we do it, give us a little bit of background to yourself and tell us about TransFICC, if you would.
Yeah, sure. So, I'm Tom McKee. I founded TransFICC with Steve Toland and Judd Gaddy back in 2016. We all used to work together. Steve very much on the sales side, Judd and myself technologists, Judd a lot more on the infrastructure side, me more software. And Steve had a business idea, and Judd and I wanted to sort of find a company which we'd enjoy working at. And we thought the best way of finding a company you enjoy working at is build your own, of course. So we moved into the fixed income space doing connectivity. And
what was it that made you, just going back to that, and you having that sort of thing of saying, right, we wanted to find the place we wanted to work and enjoy it? It's, that entrepreneurial sort of journey for, coming from that background isn't a natural sort of play for a lot of people. What was it that excited you about that sort of first thought?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, the hiring people was probably one of the scariest things I've done. I remember our first two hires. I was like, we really can't mess up this company now, because people have decided to come work for us and put their livelihood in our hands. And that was that was very scary, I have to say, the first two hires we did. I don't know why it was fine after the first two, but...
It's interesting you say that though as well, because I think that's significant, because I don't think I've ever heard, well, I certainly haven't heard many people, 25 years of recruiting in the space, there's not many people who are taking that sort of responsibility around it. I think people sort of see it almost as a transactional relationship in a lot of experiences. It's been, we've probably had at least a decade, probably since 2008, of people sort of coming to expect a transaction between employer and employee on both sides, and it's become less about carriage clocks and more about, right, I'm here and let's find out what's in, and quite self-orientated, both employer and employee. I think it's a really interesting thing that you took that responsibility and said, look, we want to make sure that the people have trusted in us, that we create that same sort of thing as well. I think that's probably the crux of what you see as a business straight away and how you look at things, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure you've probably had a similar thing building up to start in terms of bringing people on. But I guess Judd and myself and Steve as well, we weren't, I was the youngest of the three of us, I suppose, but I guess we all had experiences working at companies where they'd done lots of redundancies and layoffs, and it's just, if you hire people, you spend a lot of time interviewing and trying to find candidates and finding the right candidate for yourself, and obviously it's a two-way conversation. So when you actually go through that effort of finding someone, you're bringing them on board, you really want them to obviously stay and flourish, and you obviously don't want the company to go under. I guess it was a really good impetus for us to continue. It's one of the many. And
it's interesting you go into that, and obviously we've worked with you over the years, and it is in the best possible way, not an easy place to interview with, and get a job in. There's companies there where it's it's a process, but I think it's always been a high barrier to entry for you guys, and I think that probably comes back to a little bit about what you were saying there about making sure it's right. I think in high growth, you've gone through cycles of investment, etc., etc. In high growth companies in the financial services space, technology space, you're often seeing people sort of jump into that and say, right, we need to get these bums on seats, we need to hire developers, we need to go through that. And so the barriers come down, the talent density drops. And I think I've spoken to Steve about this before as well, that there is the whole concept of talent density, making sure you look left and right and see people who are raising the average, I think is incredibly important. And I think where there's been phases for you guys to take people on that could be all right, but not spectacular. It's always been, let's wait for the spectacular as opposed to doing that. And that spectacular, I think, even more interestingly for you, isn't necessarily about the experience or what they've done before. It's more about that individual. And you've got some really interesting cases of people who've come through the ranks at the business who might not necessarily come from traditional backgrounds, competitors or the industry or whatever it might be, but people who come in and absolutely flourish because of the attitude they bring to your business.
Yeah, because we don't have sort of restrictions on you have to have gone to university or you have to have worked in finance or fixed income or anything like that. I guess like for us it's been open to work because we do a lot of pair programming. Now it's remote pair programming because we're a remote first company. But it's like how well do people communicate and whether, because that's not for everybody. And I think, and so we're quite upfront about that because it's not, there's nothing wrong if that's not your like cup of tea. But but that's like, we're quite upfront about that. And Judd and I, and Steve as well, with the sales side of things, is we always try to hire people who are better than us and people we could learn from. And we get these conversations with like the senior developers, especially when we've hired, where they've come from like their previous jobs where there's one senior developer on the team and then they're having to coach up a lot of like less experienced or more junior people. Whilst for us, there's 3 or 4 senior people per team. And they'll have like been working for 20 plus years and like this is the first time in a long time where I'm learning from my colleagues and they love it and they flourish off the back of it. And I think it's just, I guess we see this like elsewhere where a team or a hiring manager gets given like hiring budget, and if they don't make that hire by the end of the year, the budget's gone. So they end up with this panic of I need to hire, otherwise I lose the budget. Whilst we've always hired based on solving problems. So it's like, okay, like we've like taken the next step up here in terms of like what we want to do product development wise, or like the number of customers we have. We really need a new dev team, or we really need more customer support or SRE people, which SRE for us is like people who work in like the more physical, so servers, switches. We really need to hire like that extra person or that extra team. And we hire based off the problems we have or the problems we see coming, rather than being like, we've got budget to hire, so we better hire and try and fill that seat for the sake of it. It's so
important that, isn't it? It's and there is so much of that we need to hire for the sake, and that can either be, as you say, because we're going to lose the budget for that hire or what have you, but it can also be because we've got the expectations of the external funders to say, look, we've been having this thing, we have to grow. And it's a conversation I have all the time. It's like, right, we've had our Series A or our Series B, we've got this sort of stuff, we need to have X amount of developers by that sort of stage, or X amount of salespeople by that sort of stage, or whatever it might be. I think that's a real danger sort of zone for businesses, isn't it? Because it means it just packs people in. How have you resisted that? Because you've obviously had investment at various different phases. How have you managed that sort of process to make sure that despite pressure to hire, that you've made sure you've kept that sort of religious discipline?
To make your sales numbers. I have to say we have a very good relationship with our investors. I mean, obviously we were speaking about Illuminate before, but our investors trust us, and like so we trust them, and so like even at our board meetings, it's very sort of it's very much like, how do we build this on? And they understand. Like even now, I think we're still about 80% technologists still. So it's quite high, even for like a company. And they understood that we really wanted to build like a software platform and then go out and sell. And I think it really helped having a combination of technologists and sales as founders, rather than being. So we started the company with a business problem, and then we had the technologists, so in Judd and myself initially, to go like, how do we go solve this problem? Whilst I think a lot of companies either just have like a business, like the sales business side, or just have the technology. Where you've got technology trying to find the problem, or sales people trying to pitch things, but don't actually have like the any sort of product to actually back it up with. And so they've trusted us to spend like a few years sort of build what we call like the one API sort of platform. And now we're like building on top of that to go out and go to the market, and they've seen how it evolves, and like they've seen the reputation we have now, especially, I know fixed income, like B2B sales is a little bit niche, but we have that reputation for delivering like good product. And that's something which is quite hard, especially for a small company. There's only, I think we're about 50 now. That's still a small company if you look at our competitors. They're like in the thousands, our customers who also have thousands of employees to be able to service that. So like we've really focused on like actually building a good product, then like now we're ramping up the sales team a bit more to kind of expand as well.
Well, this is what we often see, isn't it? It's like companies there hit that button, ramp up the sales team, and then let everything else follow.
Yeah, or you ramp up the sales team, build up your costs, miss your revenue numbers because the product hasn't followed or whatever else, and then...
Or start overselling on buggy products that don't necessarily work out, and salespeople that are under pressure, so they overpromise and underdeliver. There's that classic sort of memes that go out there with the... I saw the one of Baron Trump the other day with Elon in the background. And it's that it's a well-worn sort of issue, isn't it? Well-trodden road, where you see, particularly in this space, sales teams who are over-promising, overselling the products, and having real divide between tech and sales all the way through it. I think that 80-20 piece for you is a really interesting sort of position to be in. And also that founding thing. I'm fascinated. I've done 400 or 500 of these episodes with lots of different companies over the course of the last 5-6 years or so. And I'm always looking at common threads, and I'm always looking at the sort of, what makes someone good, what makes a company work, what's the sort of golden threads that bind them all together. And actually, I'm fascinated by the founding teams and looking at that sort of stuff. And if you think of it from a VC perspective, they're looking at that founding team and thinking, what do people bring from it? But you're right, there are founders who've come from a product background, there's founders who come from a development background, there's quite actually a lot of founders who I've spoken to who've come from legal backgrounds, founders who come from sales backgrounds, or founders who've come from the business and seen the problem and then switched over to the other side. And I think wherever possible, where you can have that blend of founder backgrounds, where there's that sort of immediate bond between sales and development, that's where you've got this sort of sweet spot. And I think what's noticeable from you is you do have that sort of thing. Steve's very unapologetic about his sales background as opposed to his tech background within it.
But Steve's quite technical still. He has a engineering degree, and he worked for BT.
He plays himself down though, doesn't he? Whenever you talk to him about it. But you come in there and you think, right, okay, there's that brilliant ability to sort of like cross in all of that, and this product piece that comes out of it. And the ability then to sort of have that shaping. And I think this has been a theme for everything you've said so far, that it's actually, and even to the very first thing you said, like when you talked about putting, you and Judd working out that we wanted to work for a company that we'd want to work for. Yeah. And that thought process, I think, is really clear. And when we go back to the conversation we had for the judges beforehand, and thinking about, right, what does it actually work for? What does a great workplace, not for everyone, but for technologists look like? And when you're looking at the great workplace for technologists, you're looking at being able to look left and right and see people there who you can learn. And I know you're very deliberate as well about how people develop, how they get variety in what they're doing, about how they, the pair programming piece that you do. There's lots of little bits and pieces there that make it a great workplace for technologists at TransFICC that seems very designed by someone there who's saying, well, what would great really look like? It's not just, right, we have to do this and it's BAU. It's like, what would a really great situation be for it? And it comes back to that first conversation. So tell us a little bit about why it stands out from what you think and what you've tried to build there for technologists coming into the business.
Yeah, I'm now reflecting back a little bit on because I think some of it was unintentionally intentional. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, I think there's threads as a developer, and like I guess my background as a developer. Usually, naturally, especially if you've worked in finance, you get to a point of being like a senior developer, and then like you hit a ceiling in a way, where you either want to be moved into management or something like that. So we've always thought, like, how can you keep like senior developers like interested, and so they don't move off. So we have our development teams. We have our SRE team, which I guess. SRE means different things in different places. For us, it means infrastructure, so networking, servers, this sort of thing. We have a BA, QA team. So like for our developers, we've tried to remove as many hurdles as possible. So I know we mentioned we do like remote pair programming, which means whilst we're remote, it means that you're always working with at least one colleague, which I think from like a human aspect is like really nice when you're working remotely, because it means you're having like casual conversations with someone and you're working through a problem together, which is great. We do something called trunk-based development, which means we're not using branches or doing pull requests, which means that like if a developer finds like some I guess poor quality code or want to like make a small improvement which isn't necessarily functional, it's very easy for them to make that change. And so that's again removing another barrier. So our teams aren't really fixed to like a specific product. So we don't have a team for our Transact product, which is the auto negotiator. We don't have a team specifically for one API or a team for like our what we call taker, which is raising inquiries from, anyway, I'm going into too much detail there. We have like our teams our teams work on all areas of the system and all areas of the products. So you're not just like, you don't just have the UI team, you just don't have etc. Everyone works on everything. And we make sure that people rotate within those teams. So you're not always stuck with, I mean, that sounds bad, let's say sort of like 6 to 8 people. You work with other people within the technology space, and so you have that diversity of what you're working on. We also have rotations out of the dev team into like the SRE team, and like vice versa if people want to do that. So if you're interested in working more on like, you know, how do we actually set up the servers? How do we actually do, you know, what is actually undertaken to set up like a new rack in a data center or upgrading switches, like how does that all work? Like the developers have the opportunity to go do that for a few months, and that also helps the SRE people because it's in terms of like coding and things like that. We're also very good coders. It's like different practices and how you work together. And like, I mean, to be honest with you, from an SRE point of view, we have because we do a lot of like continuous integration from the development point of view. So like Judd, Steve, and myself know Dave Farley quite well. I mean, go on YouTube and you'll see him like talking a lot about continuous delivery, continuous integration. We're absolutely behind that. We have a big CI pipeline where we make sure we have a full end-to-end test run, and like with under an hour from when you push to being releasable. But our SRE team have done the same thing. So they have like simulated environment for like all the servers and switches, so they can do and it's all automated weekend runs. Like systems updates are known for like having to do lots of manual things. All of ours is automated, which has meant that we now can offer like what we call global hosting. So we've had to build like this whole global network for hosting for our customers. For running our software, we're now in a position to be able to run their software.
And where did that come from as an idea? Because I'm always interested in the origination. So this is obviously something which has grown and evolved as your technique's grown and evolved.
That came from the SRE team themselves. So they were like, hey, we've had to build all this automation, and we've like got these locations in Europe and in Asia and North America, and we have the ability to spin up servers and get them deployed quickly and easily. We could sell this as a product, and they came to us with that idea. So it's like to have that sort of have employees thinking in that way and coming to you with ideas.
And feeling that they can. That's the other side of it.
And I guess it's not dissimilar to how Amazon went with AWS, where they had to build all their like sort of hosted environment. They went, oh, this is a product. In itself.
Or Google's 20% time.
Exactly. So like that, and so I think we just always try and, because technologists always, they don't want to just do the same thing all year round. They want to try different things. You want to keep that pulse going. So that's why we try and keep the variety there. And if people have ideas of things they want to work on, they come to us, we have a discussion, we go, this is a good idea, this isn't a good idea, like how can we actually like build this, how does this help us? And we try to embrace this sort of thing, because you never know what's going to be the next brilliant idea. So.
It's really interesting you say this, and I think it's so important to have this sort of story as an employer, and as an employer, or wanting to be an employer of choice. You've gone through various growth cycles at times there where it's been hugely challenging to actually grow a business with talent, particularly when you're looking, as we've spoken about before, at the top tier of talent within a space. And let's go back to sort of 2022 as for example, 21-22, a period of significant growth, a period where people were throwing cash at developers left, right, and centre. That was
so hard to
do
hire.
things. Exactly.
So hard to hire.
And counter offers coming in left, right, and centre, and all of these different sort of things. And it's been like, look, you've been you pay pay well as a business for development talent. There are always going to be people out there who pay ridiculous amounts for the same sort of talent. Not necessarily the right career move for people, and so it's got to be about having that particular story. So one of the questions which I asked you again for the judges when we were doing the financial technologist interviews was one of my favourite questions whenever we take a job spec from anyone, and I've done this for my whole career. And we're sat there and talking to them, and they've gone out and they're saying, look, this is what we're looking for. We want someone who's got this, and this, and it's always about what we want from that particular individual. And one of the questions I'm always fascinated about, and particularly when we've gone through this, and as I said to you at the start of 2025, there's a lot of people hiring again at the moment. My anticipation is it becomes more challenging to get the best talent in the industry again right now, after a couple of years of 23 and 24 being in the doldrums a little bit for hiring, and a little bit easier because of redundancies, etc., to find that talent. when you put yourself in that position, it's always likely that any good developer or technologist, let's say further, is going to have 2 or 3 offers on the table. So if they've got an offer from TransFICC and competitors or people outside the industry or whatever it might be, or from an institution or whatever it can go for, and I think there's a pretty clear reason as to why they would want to join your business, but articulate that if you would. Why would people choose TransFICC over another offer which they'd have at that sort of stage?
Yeah,
I think you've also caveated it by saying beforehand that it's going to be the right thing for the right person. And I think that's really important to say. Not every company is perfect for everyone.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned before that, and we'll come on to that, I think, a little bit later on as well, about the remote aspect and how you do that, which is a great thing, particularly when people are starting to push people back into the office. The ability to say, look, this is how we do it, and this is how we get it right. There's lots of remote-first companies that don't get it right. But you mentioned paired programming as before, so I'm going to stop nattering now and let you answer the question. Tell us a little bit about why someone would be joining you guys.
So I guess the first, like you mentioned, the pair programming, I think that's a selling point. I assume if we'd made someone an offer, they'd also consider that a selling point. Otherwise, they would have disappeared at that point.
Yeah, true.
Hopefully not using us to lever up another offer.
Exactly.
Although I guess that does happen. So I get, like, for us, from a technologist point of view, it's like we're hiring you as a developer. You will be doing development. It's not, you won't be in meetings all week. We try to get people committing and pushing on the first day. You'll have your laptop set up, you'll have like some introduction calls, you will meet your team on that day, and you will start working on that day. We will like embrace the feedback you have. You'll be able to do what you enjoy doing. I think a lot of places you don't necessarily get that. And I guess it's just like how we work as a business. We still have like our daily calls. As a company, we have company-wide daily calls where people just give updates or issues they've had, just from a pure communication point of view. Judd, Steve and myself are very upfront around communication of things. So like when we've done raises in the past, we've gone, well, this is what it means for your shares. This is how much your shares are worth. What does this mean in terms of dilution? These are the things we're going to put in. We're very open. Any questions at all? It's the same with our quarterlies. We have company quarterlies where people can ask us anything. And if they have questions about the sales numbers or why we're building things, we're very open to those. And you can put your hand up, or you can submit a question, anonymous question sort of thing. Because not everyone likes to be putting a hand up in front of the whole company.
Yeah, true. I was going to ask about that because I imagine. And when you're 80% developers, not everyone likes an audience in that sort of demographic, right?
Yes, that's true. But because of the pair programming element of things, we focus a lot on communication. So we tend to, I guess a bias in terms of our hiring is people who are like good communicators, because it's really important. Especially as a remote first company, communication is so key. Yeah. Because it's like only a small amount of it is actually voice, so much of it's text-based, whether it's chat or email or whatever. So you have so it is something we bias towards, I have to say, like in terms of communication. Yeah. So I guess it's less of a problem. You still have people like who are a little bit more tentative, I suppose. It's just. Yeah, for me, it's how we develop the software with the continuous integration, the trunk-based development, the pair programming that you will be developing like most of the time. Yeah. Every team kind of operates differently, so we're not strict. You do Kanban, you do Scrum. It's what works for the team. Yeah. The team goes off and does, and like we trust the team to do the right thing. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you spend all this time hiring. You have to have that relationship where you trust each other. Yeah. You're coming to work for me, so you have to trust me. Yeah. I'm hiring you. I have to trust you to do the right thing. So it's like, we don't want to do micromanagement. We don't want to be telling people what to do day in, day out. Yeah. We're all adults here. Yeah. Let's behave as adults and like build a fantastic product for our customers. And I think that sort of element, for me, it sounds like kind of obvious or simplistic, but a lot of companies don't really treat people like that.
Well, it's common sense and common practice, isn't it? Because it does sound obvious and simplistic, and this is what I really enjoyed about that conversation. So, we were obviously we've done this for the workplace awards that we've done now for best part of 6-7 years or so. So that's a lot of interviews that we've done over that sort of time, every single time, in multiple categories, multiple people over that sort of phase. And you hear similar sort of stuff. And I think the interesting part for me is the evolution of how people are seeing this and how people do their pitch for what a great workplace looks like. And I think if we go back to COVID, it was all about care and reaching out, and before that it was probably not far off the old beanbags and table tennis tables and all that sort of stuff. It then, post-COVID, got to getting people together and the off-sites and the trips that people were doing and gimmicks, etc., etc. What I genuinely loved about our conversation was just that it was really clear about intentional, and I think this is so underestimated when you're talking about technologists as a whole. It's what is a great workplace for technologists isn't necessarily about gimmicks. It's about how you can get the fundamentals right for that. How are you going to pack great people around them? How are you going to lead them with trust and listen to what they're talking about? You talked there about communication, and we'll come on to, as I said, to remote, hybrid, etc. in a second. But the communication part of it, and everything you do, and everything you were talking about was so simplistic, but yet so brilliantly executed all the way through. Clearly, brilliantly executed all the way through. That I think it really stood out, and it was really like we're thinking for our technologists, and thinking about what does that, coming back to that original statement of we wanted to build a place that we'd want to work for. Absolutely on point with everything that you've done on that, and I think that's real credit to what's happened with with you and the intentional sort of building or unintentional of how it's built that sort of culture. Yeah. Let's go back to that, because I do think it's an interesting thing. It's been a debate that's run on LinkedIn for weeks and weeks and months. It's barely a day where you turn the pages of a paper and not see something about they're coming back, or JP Morgan's coming back all in, or Citigroup, as we were talking about, aren't now coming back, or keeping up the hybrid thing. There's a lot of pressure on businesses to say what do they want to do. And there's a lot of businesses there that thought, we would be remote and we'd be remote forever, and then suddenly said, actually, we're messing this up and we do it. But I think it's messing it up becomes the critical part of it, because you are testament to getting that stuff right. You're testament to the fact that it can work. You're testament to the fact that you can't now change it because of where everyone is. I appreciate that.
We could change it, but I don't think it
wouldn't necessarily help.
Yeah.
But it works, right? And you're getting it right, and it comes back to that intentionally doing things in the right sort of way to allow that to happen. So give me your appraisal of why that allows you to get great international talent, how it helps you to allow people to thrive, how you make sure people still develop their careers, how it works on retention, all of that sort of stuff. Well, tell me a little bit about your thoughts there.
Everyone talks about extremes in terms of like, oh, you have to be in the office all the time, or you have to be remote all the time. I mean, we call ourselves remote first, but we have an office, and we utilise WeWork a lot. So if you're based in a city or near a city which is a WeWork, you can go work there if you want. Yeah. But I think people actually want flexibility more than anything else. Like we have employees a lot of our employees have kids, for example, and they've got to do a school run, or their kid's sick or something like that, and they want that flexibility to be able to do that, and you just have to trust them to do the work. Yeah. For us,
have you ever had any worries about that? Because I think people talk about trust and flexibility and all that sort of thing, and then you can see sometimes where it gets taken advantage of. But I think you probably set things up to allow that flexibility to be trusted, and you highlighted it before, where you talk about they trust you and you trust them.
We haven't had anyone sort of take advantage of that, I have to say. We focus more on what's delivered rather than the hours worked, I suppose, more than anything else. I guess with paired programming, it's harder to go disappear, I suppose, in that regard. So we were fully in the office until COVID, and with COVID we had to go fully remote. And with the fully remote, because we were London-based, all our hires in London very competitive for hiring development, made it even harder, I guess it was during COVID and post-COVID, like you said, in the 22 period, where there's such a rapid hiring. And we just took the opportunity to go, you know what, we can hire anyone in this country. Yeah. And we did that. Yeah. Then we went, let's try and hire anyone in continental Europe. And we did that as well.
Well, that's great talent across continental Europe.
And for us, and scaling the business, it's helped, because we've had to deal with a situation where not everyone's in the same office. And for us, at a good time of the business where we were trying to grow. And so it's allowed us to... Now we have people working in, I guess the biggest time zone in Europe will be Greece. Greece will be the biggest time zone. That works well for us, because we deal with MTS, Italian market, where that opens, I think, 6 a.m. UK time, 5 a.m. UK time maybe. Okay. So we have developers that started, so if there's an issue, you have that sort of natural support.
Follow the sun sort of play,
like accidental follow the sun sort of thing. And then we've hired people in North America now, so we've got a few people in New York State. And it's helped us just scale the company in terms of different geographical locations and things, and it's just so much more focused on communication and flexibility. I think wanting people to come back into the office a lot of time is managers want to visually see someone in the office and someone visually working, and maybe they don't have the systems in place to have suitable communication. I can't talk too much about other companies because I don't work at other companies in that regard.
You have done, though, right? As we were saying before.
I have done. Yeah. I've never worked anywhere where like working from home was sort of more of like a one-off sort of thing. So you had like a sick kid, or you were not moving house, but you could see a post or whatever come in, delivery of a sofa. I don't know. It was a lot more like focused on that rather than like it works better for that individual. And for us, it's worked really well. Obviously, for people in like sales, it's a little bit more complicated because you have to do a little bit more like face-to-face. But this is why we also have the offices. Yeah. The office space, so I actually want to come into the office a few times a week and meet my colleagues. Great, come in, not a problem. Yeah. Like there's nothing
and that
against
works quite nicely for you.
Yeah, the thing which I don't like with other companies where they're saying you have to come in 3 days a week, but then the office isn't big enough, or you can't sit with your team. Yeah. And like we're discussing, like some companies have this problem. So then you come into the office and then you're on calls all day because you can't sit with your team. Yeah. Or you're in different buildings. So it's like, well, you've wasted however long commuting. Yeah. And then you're doing the exact same setup as you were on home, potentially in a worse situation because you've got loads of other people on calls around you. And so like there has to be a reason for why you're doing it. Like if you're doing it for the sake of I want to see people, that's not a very good reason.
And are you deliberate around that sort of thing, or when you actually get people together? Or
we are deliberate. So like we have like teams come in and work together, for example, and we have like our company away days, or everyone comes in and we have like big company update, lots of conversation. We go out for dinner, like go do activities and things. So we have people come together for the intention of actually there's something planned. It's not just that we're coming into the office for the sake of it. We're coming in because we want to like brainstorm like a new product idea, or like ways like for expanding with our existing like customers from a sales point of view, or want to do some sort of team building sort of thing. We don't really, or someone new's joining. So if we had like a new starter, it's like, okay, we're going to come in because they're joining this team. We can all meet each other in person and get to know each other in that way. It's like it's not doing it for the sake of it. It's like a deliberate. We
still get to see you down in London every now and then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm Leeds. I'm in Leeds for people who didn't know this. So it's not too bad on the train.
It's not too bad.
It's not too bad. It's not too bad. Yeah.
Good. Well, let's move on to. I told you this would fly by, didn't I, as well? So let's move on to what it looks like for TransFICC this year. Sounds like there's more plans. There'll be more expansion, new teams that are coming into play, etc., etc. What's happening this year? Yeah,
so we are. So I guess for a brief background, we started off with something called the One API product. We've started building more front-end systems. We call it like Trader Desktop, which is like a trading GUI system. We also have like an algorithmic system called TransAct, which does auto negotiation. So we're doing a revamp of Trader Desktop this year, and we're also trying to add to that product line as well. So because of that, we're really looking to hire sort of 10 to 15 developers. I mean, we're predominantly a Java shop, but we're looking for people with skill sets in like TypeScript, React, Shadcn, Tailwind, the sort of front-end technologies. We'll also need business analysts, and we call them QAs, but it's very much sort of like automated testing people as well to work with our teams.
Well, those worlds are colliding more and more these days anyway.
Yeah, well, like they're not a separate team. So QAs are part of the development team as well, and everyone works together. They're not like a silo as such. It's just useful to have someone who's like specifically working on sort of big picture, like testing, like how can I try and break the system rather than being like a developer going, please don't break my special tools I've just built. So like that's quite, because we're 4 teams at the moment, so I guess that's like we're trying to increase our technology space by about 50% this year, I guess, based on that. So that's quite big for us this year.
Yeah, definitely. And what's prompted that? Just general
market opportunity, I'd say. We've got a lot of customers come in. So we've started pushing more aggressively into North America. So our Trader Desktop e-trading system was more European focused to start with, just naturally because of like where most of us are based in Europe, and we're moving into the US North America space more, trying to work into US credit market, which requires like certain additional features and things like that. So it's really like the market opportunity more than anything else. Like in general, like most of our customers and most of the dealers are looking to reduce their costs whilst actually being able to service their clients more promptly. So pricing inquiries faster, getting prices to the market faster, and that's the sort of thing we think we can help with. Like one of our customers last year, we did quite a bit of work with them improving their like price contribution feed. Don't want to go into much detail. We got them now to being like one of the top dealers pricing wise in European government space.
Yeah.
And so like
that sort of story starts to spread, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So we're really So we're trying to because of that we're trying to like push more in that regard. It's just market opportunity more than anything else, you know.
Well, I said it at the start before we came on air that I think the market is moving excitedly in the right sort of way. We've got governments on both sides of the pond who are looking to invest in growth. The conditions are there. There's pent up sort of desire for people to buy technology again at the moment and look for those efficiencies and productivity gains. And I think that's what's always been at the sort of DNA of what your business has been set out to be. So. Love to see it. Well done again on the recognition.
Thanks for the award.
It's always been a company that I've had a lot of respect for, and I know you've been in and around it for a while now. But this year I thought it was stand out, and I think actually when you look at it and think, right, what are you guys doing that really can transform someone's career, get them really enjoying what they're doing, learning whilst they're doing with great people. There's so much to admire about what you're doing. So if people are watching this and want to be part of those teams and find out if they have those skill sets that you mentioned beforehand, the BAs and the QAs and everything else in between, what's the best way for them to get in touch and find out more?
All our jobs are listed on our website, or you can come through Harrington Star, of course, for more information. But you can see all our information on our website. Harrington Star will also help out. Just go from there. It'd be nice to anyone interested in a new job, reach out to us.
Perfect. Well, I can tell you that they'll be in safe hands. I think there's so much exciting things that are happening. It's great to see the business continue to go from strength to strength. And as you say, when market opportunities are there, I know that you guys have always stepped up in the past. So very much good luck with it. Lovely to have you in here today.
Good to see you again.
And love talking about it. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks.